the Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and we are working our way through the top 25. After tonight, we will be halfway done. These are teams possibly could compete for a playoff spot. I'm sure one of these 5 teams are going to make the playoff field. But they're going to be a whole hell of a lot of fun to talk about this week. And I'm joined by my co-host, Fresh. How you doing, buddy?
Haps, I'm doing great. 15 to 11, this is a unique group. All have extremely high expectations coming into the season. They kind of look like they're trying to gain traction, but at the same time, they could all become dumpster fires. There's so many fine tunes with these 5 programs that if one or two things goes right, they're going to be in great shape and they will be competing for a playoff spot. But if something goes wrong, it spirals. And what we'll talk about as we get into the teams, but like the depth issues on these teams, they have the talent on the front end, but if something falls apart at one of those key spots, it all falls apart. And they don't have that second tier to keep them in that fight. So it could be really, really special, or it could be really, really painful for these 5 fan bases in these programs.
Yeah, this could be a very intriguing year from all of these teams. Expectations have been set high for a couple of them. Some of them are kind of living off of last year. And then a couple of them, you start to wonder, like, where are they really going to fall in the pecking order of college football? But real quick, before we go into the top 15 teams, numbers 15 through 11, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. You don't want to miss what we got coming out next, because after this, we're going to hit the top 10 in the preseason ranking. At number 25, it's the Texas A&M Aggies. 24 was the Oklahoma Sooners. 23 was the Nebraska Cornhuskers. 22, prior to them suspending their quarterback for violating an honor code, the BYU Cougars.
And him also wanted to transfer. So yeah, we put in BYU before it all came out. So there's our disclaimer that that might change going forward, but we're sticking with what we got now.
Right. 21 was the Tennessee Volunteers. 20 was the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. SMU came in at 19. K-State, the Wildcats, are there at 18. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, at 17. And number 16 was the Indiana Hoosiers. Fresh, let's start off with our number 15 team. It is the Florida Gators, coming in at number 15. Now, I'm going to take you into the Wayback Machine here, Fresh, because at the very end of last year, you and I started to have a conversation about how impressed we were with how the Gators were finishing the season, and that we talked about, did they deserve to be in our end of the season top 25? And then we made the comment, like, depending on how they have spring football, depending on how everything goes with them, we could very easily see this team in our top 25 going into next season. But this is also a make or break year for Bubble Screen Billy. Fresh. So, Florida Gators, what do you got?
Billy Napier, the pressure's on him. There's no excuse. Last year, he built himself some equity because the schedule was really rough and they had recruiting problem area. They weren't really exactly on the momentum there, and Graham Mercer still was struggling. Like he had the free pass last year, and they produced down the stretch. They finally started showing some signs of life. You have no more excuses. This schedule, I think, is actually tougher, but you have no more excuses. You have to show up because if Florida fans, they've had a rough stretch, and I'm actually pretty happy about that. I think it's pretty amazing. If you have listened to the show before, you know why. The 2020 season ended in great fashion with the throwing of the shoe in the fog versus LSU, and then getting beat in the SEC title game. And from there, that program has been a tough spot. Here you are, 2025. You finally put together a top 10 recruiting class since 2020. According to 24/7 Sports, last year's incoming class, though, February of 25, was number 7. That's the first top 10 recruiting class since 2020. So there's some momentum in the recruiting element there. But you also, more importantly, have DJ Lagway. He has some injuries in the offseason. I'm kind of working like, all right, is he fully healthy? How's it going? Is there pain? Is he going to be ready for day one? We'll see. They're keeping that kind of under wraps, but they don't have to reveal anything. So we'll see what happens come the season opener. But the hopes and dreams of Gator Nation are on his right shoulder and in his brain and his mobility. It's on DJ Lagway. He is going to have to deliver that team some serious wins. So that's where the beginning threshold for the Florida football team in 2025 starts. Offensively as a whole, they have solid depth at running back, receiver, offensive line. I really like Jaden Ball. He played really, really well last year with Montel Johnson. Now he's going to be the number one guy. How can he take that number one job and really elevate Aiden Mizell, Eugene Wilson, Jake Slaughter? I mean, you throw in freshman receiver Dallas Wilson, UCLA transfer J. Michael Sturdivant. There's playmakers on this football team. They returned 4 of their offensive line starters from last year, including Slaughter, like I mentioned before. So there's no lack of depth or lack of knowledge on this offense. It's time for them to perform and put up or shut up. And one thing about Florida fans, Steve Spurrier, whether he was playing quarterback in the 60s, whether he was the head coach there in the 90s through the early 2000s, or even Urban Meyer, they've been known for offense. And Florida fans, if they aren't scoring 25 points, 30 points, 40 points a game, the sky's falling and they're losing their minds because that's what they're used to. They were spoiled by amazing offense. So the pressure now is on Billy Napier to score a lot of points, not just score win games 24-10. He needs to be winning games like 41-10 on a regular basis. So the pressure's there. You have all this returning talent. You've got to deliver. Always through the 40 years, they've been, even when the teams are good, and you got to give respect. When the teams were good, the defense was always overlooked by the offense, but yet the defense was always superior, whether it's Javon Curse, etc. The list was very long. The offense always took the cake. This year, there's some returning talent that is intriguing on the defensive side of the ball. Last year's defense, they showed improvement. They got better and better. The year before, they were kind of abysmal and putrid, but they've shown progress. Can they keep building off of that? And that defense is going to have to show up in big times to help Lagway and that offense win some big games on their schedule. But you look at it, Miles Graham, up-and-coming player, Jordan Castile at safety, Bryce Thornton at safety, Cormier McClain at corner. They have some decent depth in the secondary. I am kind of worried about the front seven, especially the defensive line. They have 2 solid players in Sapp and Banks, but where's the rest of that pass rush going to come from? Where's that run stopping going to come from? Because they're going to start playing Texas and Georgia, who are going to have offensive lines. They're going to run the football down your throat. Can that front seven, especially the defensive line, hold up against it? They might have pass rush and be able to take on a spread offense, but can they really show up when it matters defensively at the defensive line? So we will see how that happens here real soon and be able to move forward. The schedule, it's going to be a grind. We've learned last year with having the expanded playoff that you can maybe get it at 9-3, depending on who you lost to and who you played. You're going to have some depth issues. It's going to be who really has the healthiest team down the stretch when it matters in late December and January. Can you withstand the grind of the schedule and have the depth be able to show up and make plays late? This stretch, though, they have a chance to make it up late, but the early part of the schedule is going to really test this Florida football team. September 13th at LSU. So next week at Miami, that'll be a home game. You host Texas. You go to A&M October 11th. And then you throw in, you got Georgia. Kentucky plays them tough recently and has a couple wins in succession. You got Ole Miss. You got maybe a payback game there from Ole Miss, getting a little irritated from last year and losing to them and blowing their playoff chance. Then Tennessee and Florida State. So outside of that 4-game stretch, you still have a load of a schedule that you've got to be prepared for. Is this team mentally also ready, not just physically, mentally ready for the grind to be living up to expectations, competing not just for a playoff spot, for an SEC title? That should be your mindset. Any big league should be trying to say, all right, are we ready to compete for a league title? Can we make the playoffs? Those are our 2 goals. One are the same at the end of the season, and you sort of let the cards play. But is this team mentally and physically ready for that run? But I mentioned the big opening. This team has high expectations, and if things go out right, this team could be, I'm going to say it right now, if things fell right and they played at a high level, they could finish 11-1. That's the ceiling of this football team. The floor could be 6-6 because I don't trust the backup quarterback. And if Lagway still is hurt and he gets dinged up in the middle of the year, or that defensive line isn't right there, or the offensive line isn't playing to standard, or the secondary struggles at the cornerback position, that's where there's talent, but can they all play at a high level and play consistently during this gauntlet of schedule? So 11-1, if they can put it all together and play at a high level, the 6-6 is the floor. So there's a wider range that can come to Gator Nation this fall. Can they put it all together? Is Billy Napier the coach to lead them to the next level? If he can go 11-1 or 10-2 and make it in the playoff, perfectly fine. If he's 7-5 or 6-6, he's not, at that point, he's not coaching the Florida State game at the end of the year. So the pressure's on him. How does he handle it? Has Lagway handle it now with expectations to win? There were no expectations when he showed up last year. It was, hey, let's just wing it and see what happens. And if we play well, we play well. Now the expectations for Lagway and the entire team are at a high level of compete for a playoff spot, compete for a potential SEC title game spot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the expectation is there. The talent is there. They have got to produce. And if they don't, the house of cards will fall apart. So interesting to see what happens in the swamp this fall. But ceiling is 11-1. They can put it all together and play at a high level. The floor 6-6.
Fresh, I want to take a moment here before we get started on any praise towards the Florida Gators. I want to take just a massive victory lap on Graham Mertz and the Florida Gators there, because we called that whole thing 2 years ago that it was going to be an epic disaster for them with Graham Mertz. And again, I know the kid got hurt there, but all the Florida fans that were around who are telling us, oh, he's the greatest in the world, or he's going to do so much better than what he did up in Wisconsin. Like, yeah, he played better, obviously, but he wasn't like this end-all be-all quarterback. Like, that they had the secret thing to unlock him as well there. I think it's really hard sometimes because, folks, if you and I think this is probably true with any college football team and any program in the country, is there are two sets of fans really for every fan base. There are ones that are fanboys, but they can hold a conversation with you on a majority of going on in football. Then there are the ones who are just completely irrational and have absolutely no clue really what they're talking about and think that their team is going to win the national title every single year, regardless. Now, there's some programs that hubris is warranted. Florida is not one of those places, and it does feel like to me sometimes that their fan base has a little more of the second group of fans than the first group of fans. But I digress here. Let's talk about the super sophomores, as I'm going to call it. Fresh, these three are going to stir the drink for this offense here. It's going to be DJ Lagway, Bow, and Eugene Wilson. And it's going to be dependent on those three guys having a big game week in, week out, and really pushing that offense to that next level that you were talking about. I really think the Florida offense is a thing to watch early in the season, especially week 3 against LSU. That's going to be the first time that they go up against a very well-coached defense, a defense that has the horses to keep up with those guys. If that LSU game, even if they go into Death Valley, and let's say they win 17-13 in that game and win on a late touchdown there, I think that it's going to be a giant red flag for Florida for the rest of the season. If you cannot put up 28 to 30 points a game with your offense against teams that have a quality level defense that can match you talent-wise, then it's going to be a long season for Billy Napier. And I say that because while I think that this is maybe one of the fastest defenses in college football, I don't necessarily know if it's the most disciplined. And it's the idea of you have a bunch of guys that can run all over the field. You have guys that have amazing speed, but they overcommit to a play. They over-pursue a running back. They don't take the best angles. Why? Because sometimes that their athleticism will allow them to catch up and make mistakes and not really pay for them. But then you go up against the Texas of the world. You go up against the Georgia of the world. You go up against LSU, and you go up against Miami. Maybe not some of the other teams this year, but those teams will make you pay when you just completely rely on athleticism. That's where Sapp and Banks come into being such a big deal in this defense there. They have to wreck the game from the line of scrimmage. If those two guys can wreck the game from the line of scrimmage, get after the quarterback, kind of control it where another team's not able to run the football down their throat, then it could really turn into a special season for the Gators. I was thinking more about this as you were talking. I said that Florida has to win the turnover margin in most of their games. Now, if you lose the turnover battle like 1-0, I don't think it's going to cost you games. But you can't lose games like 3-1 in the turnover margin there for any of the teams really in their schedule. Okay, week 1 against the LIU Sharks, yes, you could lose the turnover battle there. Against Mississippi State, same thing. But most of the rest of your schedule, if you are giving the ball away in your territory, it could be a very, very bad thing. DJ Lagway, that's got to be the main focus on there. 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. That ratio has to be better this year. He has to improve as a sophomore in this season as well. Fresh, I have the exact same tough stretch as you. I have them from that LSU game all the way through A&M. I wish we could honestly go further with it because it goes all the way through the cocktail party November 1st. I'm with you. The floor on this team is 6-6. I think the ceiling is 10-2. I don't think any team really could navigate this schedule with just no team can out there navigate this one and go undefeated. This schedule is just ridiculously hard. Maybe 11-1. Some programs could get to 11-1. But I really think if you're a high-quality program, you play a very challenging schedule, especially with their road games and the cocktail party on a neutral site there, 10-2 is the best bet for me. But again, if Florida goes 10-2 on this schedule, they deserve to be a playoff team. They're a playoff team.
Top 8 team in the country.
I do too.
And they're hosting a playoff game.
I do too.
That if they go 10-2.
Yes.
And even if those 2 losses are to Texas and Georgia, the stretch is still warranted of a home playoff game there in December in the Swamp.
If you lose to Texas and Georgia, then you're talking and you're 10-2. You got wins at Miami, at LSU, at A&M, and at Ole Miss, and you beat Tennessee and Florida State at home. That's just impressive.
Yeah, the committee will see just the names. Florida owns Tennessee, and so that just continue keeping that streak going is something that's you tip the cap to. Surviving a trip to Ole Miss, who's going to be very, very focused on payback last year because you destroyed them and ruined their playoff chances. So there are storylines everywhere, and then obviously payback versus the Hurricanes, so that you can go down there to Miami against Carson Beck and take on Cristobal and get payback for what they did in the Swamp last year. So if the team is motivated and plays smart and plays to a level, they can get it done. But like I said, the depth isn't there. I don't trust anyone behind Lagway, and he already has injury concerns coming in. So if there are problems, that's where things can unravel quickly. Not to bring anything bad, but in the movie Friday Night Lights, Miles was the only guy in that offense. And when he went down, the rest of the team, the coaching staff, had a deer in headlights look because they didn't know what to do. The offense was built around one player. So that kind of, can this Florida offense survive when the backup quarterback, can he show up and guide the offense to a win or two to keep them afloat until Lagway gets healthy, if that ever happens? I think he'll be fine, but you have to be prepared depth-wise to be able to withstand injuries because injuries will happen somewhere for every single team across the country.
All right, Fresh, let's go to our number 14 team. They're down on the farm over there. Iowa State, the Cyclones. They're coming in at number 14. Here's the thing. We have talked about this over the 5 seasons that we've done this podcast. Iowa State, when there is zero expectations, Iowa State plays to an amazing level. They're one of the most competitive teams, and when they show up on the field, they can beat pretty much anybody. When there are expectations on them, all of a sudden, the pressure gets higher, the stakes get higher, and they have a tendency to crumble. I don't know if that's true with this Iowa State team. Rocco Beck, back. Carson Hansen, back. Both of those guys, huge returns for this Iowa State offense. But I'm just going to say this from jump here, Fresh. Really, we could talk a ton about maybe like the offense, but the real question for Iowa State this year is, what did Matt Campbell do to fix the run defense? Because the run defense was putrid.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Replacing 2,000-yard receivers that's not an easy task. You're coming off of your first double-digit 10-plus win season in program history. Football program at Iowa State's 133 years young, and that was your first double-digit season win total. So the expectations, they can't be high. Like, you are now building off of that success. You went down there, and we all saw, yeah, Cam Ward they went down in Orlando in the bowl game. They put on a show.
They did.
Defensively, offensively, they scored, they made things happen. This team was well coached, and they were prepared to play. They now reset to take on the next challenge. We are going to find new playmakers. We're going to find new veteran leaders in this locker room to get us to take us to the next step. Can we match that 10-win season this year? Can we go for 11? Can we find a way to win a conference title, which hasn't happened since, I think, with the Missouri Valley when they won it back in the 50s, I think. There are still a lot of program level goals that are still out there for Iowa State that have not accomplished. So this season, the expectations have been set. Now 10 wins is our target. How can we match that or surpass it? I mentioned Rocco Beck. He has 5 other stars returning on offense. How do they all gather and bring it up? I do see a different offensive approach this fall. When you lose 2,000-yard receivers, but now you get 2 tight ends back who are healthy, and Bramer and Gabe Burkle. Yeah, you have Xavier Townsend, but I think the tight ends are going to be much more involved. You have 2 running backs. You mentioned Hanson, but I think Osama the third, the 3 of them, 2 of those guys, plus your tight ends, are going to create a different look of more of a power offense, and maybe actually more of a ball control, not the spread it out, throw the ball around the yard. Change it up a little bit. Use the weapons you have, and then work young receivers into the rotation as you grow the offense. So that might be a little change where the ball control help the defense out a little bit. Last year's defense was littered with injuries. You mentioned the run defense and why it was a problem. You had tons of linebackers not playing. A lot of the stars, a lot of the guys in the heavy rotation, they were just throwing guys out there and putting a jersey on. Defensive line was getting beat up. Secondary, a lot of guys were playing that usually weren't ready for it or playing out of positions because you had to have bodies. There were so many injuries. So the one positive is that you had a lot of young guys got a lot of playing time last year. There's a lot of experience on the defense because you had guys who were supposed to be starters who got hurt, or get a lot of the guys in 2 deep getting hurt. The 3rd and 4th level guys are getting caught up and getting playing time. Now you have a lot of that knowledge on that defense. How do they all play at a high level and show up? You got a lot of depth back at linebacker, a lot of depth back in the secondary, highlighted by safety Jeremiah Cooper, who had 7 picks. The cornerback spot, you lost Porter to the NFL draft. Who's going to step up and take his spot of the field and help you that lockdown corner? But Cooper back there in the secondary, plus you get some depth at linebacker. Look for them to maybe give different looks defensively. Just get your best 11 on the field sometimes, whether it is a 3-4 formation or a 4-2 or a 3-3-5. How do you manipulate your depth to get the best 11 guys on there who can tackle, can cover space, and be smart and play their responsibilities? But I think if they can slow the offense down a little bit, let the receivers develop, use the tight ends, use the running game, control the clock, keep the defense rested, spare them that way a little bit, that will come into play. Toughest 4-game stretch, BYU October 25th, November 1st, Arizona State, at TCU on the 8th, and then hosting Kansas on November 22nd. This schedule is doable. It's manageable. Can Matt Campbell put on another coaching gem? He's already challenged his team in spring practice to be better, to set a new standard, to take what they were at last year and go higher. Can they grow? I mean, this guy, there's a quarterback in San Francisco right now that he coached and developed in Brock Purdy. He can get stuff done. He can make things happen with players. He can coach them up. How he handles this offense and this team this year is going to be very, very impressive. Offensively, defensively, keeping them reset. Last year, that success was fantastic, but now that's the standard. We have to surpass it. That is not something we stopped celebrating that. We stopped celebrating that in January. Now you are onto the new and bigger, better, where 10 is the standard we have to meet or surpass and go play for another conference title. So I'm interested to see what Matt Campbell does because he's one of the most underrated coaches. He did a fantastic job in Toledo in the past almost decade now at Iowa State. He's been absolutely amazing. So how can he now set and reset a standard for Cyclone football is what I'm looking at. Like for Florida, the ceiling's 11-1. This game schedule's manageable. If they get everything together and they play at a high level, you just got to win the ballgame. I don't care if they're flashy on offense or flashy on defense. Just get the dub. 11-1 is the ceiling. This team has the talent to get there, and the schedule's manageable. The floor, though, 7-5. If that offense can't get it going, if the receivers, whether it's tight ends, running backs, or wide receivers, aren't on the same page with Beck, If the defense gets rid of the injuries and the secondary is not living up to snuff, that's where 7-5 season come into play. So can they get everything locked in? They have the talent. Can they get them all playing on the same page? Can they play up to expectation after a 10-win season, a record-setting year? That's what I'm looking for in Iowa State. But week 0 in Dublin, we'll know a lot about this football team and what kind of squad they have when they play the Wildcats at Kansas State.
Rush, there's a part of me, we have such a soft spot because we have such respect for Matt Campbell and that he is just this phenomenal coach. Plus the fact is that Campbell has said multiple times in interviews that he has no desire to leave Iowa State. Like, I respect a guy like him, and I think he's looking across the way over there at Iowa and seeing what Kirk Ferentz has done with the Hawkeyes and saying, this guy has been paid handsomely. His great-grandchildren will never have to want for money or need anything like that. And he's been so committed to the program that he just becomes beloved. And I think Matt Campbell kind of realizes that and says, this is the reason I'm going to say. You touched on the 2 wide receivers that they're going to need to replace, 2,000-yard wide receivers. That's difficult to do. So how do you do it? You're going to rely more on your tight end now. Okay? He's going to be your safety blanket. Gabe Burkle, I think that could be a huge year for him. Last year, 26 catches, just under 300 yards, got him for a touchdown, was averaging about 11 yards per catch here. I can very much see him being a huge part of this passing attack. Look for him to have anywhere between 40 and 50 catches this season and maybe about 600, 700 yards there. Again, establishing those guys, being able to control the football. You're not going to be able to score as much probably in games this year with the changes that you had in offense. You're going to rely way more on Hansen. But the thing that I keep going back is this run defense. 6 games last year allowed over 200 yards rushing. 6 football games, 200 plus yards. 5.3 yards a carry last year. That means if you ran the ball every single down, you never saw 3rd down. This is just abysmal. I'm looking at a guy like Dominique Orange. He has to step up. Their defensive tackles have to step up. They have to go to the next level and become a wrecking force at the line of scrimmage. If you do not figure out how to control the line of scrimmage on the defensive line, Iowa State will be way closer to the 7-5 number than they will be competing for a Big 12 title. I'm sorry. Take a look at last season. All right? We all watched the Big 12 title game. What happened? Scatterboo ran
Tyson
over them.
Sam Levitt, all of them. The entire Arizona State offense was in high gear.
They averaged almost 7 yards of carry on the ground. They ran the ball 36 times for 248 yards. Scatterboo himself was, now, Green, I'm not taking anything away from Cameron Scatterboo. The kid ran for 170 yards and 16 carries, and he tore up a lot of really good defenses. He's a great running back. I get that. He ain't 10 yards a carry, almost 11 yards a carry, great running back. You got to be better against the run, Iowa State. You got to do that there. You have to learn not just to be one-dimensional, just focus on your running game there. But again, it all comes back to me. Are they going to be able to control the defensive line of scrimmage? If they are, this team can easily win the Big 12 title. Easily. Going away with it, too. If they don't, if they're still giving up 5.3 yards a carry, I'm sorry, Iowa State. I love you to death. And you're going to go it's been 112 years since you won a conference title. And yes, Fresh, you're right. It's the Missouri Valley Conference, the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Storied.
So even older.
It is the storied The IAA conference, it's an association.
That's an elite collection, we'll call that.
Let's see how many of the teams that you could name. There's 10.
Drake and Creighton.
There's 10. Creighton is not in
Drake,
there.
Southern Illinois.
Drake is in there. Southern Illinois is not.
There we go. I'm going to go Iowa Wesleyan while we're at it. Southwest Missouri State.
I'm kind of shocked who's in this conference.
Western Illinois.
No, it's all right. So here's the list of people who are in the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Last time Iowa State won a conference title. So there, hey, trivia question. If you're at a bar over there in Ames, Iowa, and someone asks you, it's the halftime question, give me as many team members in that conference association as you can. You got Drake University, Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas University, University of Kansas, Kansas State, University of Missouri, University of Nebraska, University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma A&M College, which later will become Oklahoma State, and Washington University in St. Louis.
Wow. So basically it was the Big 12. It became the Big 8 and the Big 12, and then the Missouri Valley just took on other small schools. They kind of all kept developing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And looking at how that is still connected to the Missouri Valley now, or that dissolved and then Missouri Valley just became new out of nowhere. That's something to look into while you're at it. That's something. Nebraska, Kansas State, Kansas, Missouri. Wow.
Missouri Valley Conference, it retained the same administrative staff, but until the Big 8 disbanded in 1996. So that is
the past lineage.
Yeah. But they did say that this conference split apart in 1928.
Well, the 1928, man. That's just the breakdown of the conference. The association, excuse me.
Association. All right, Fresh, let's go to our number 13 team. They were not part of the Missouri Valley Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Nope, they are part of the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Miami Hurricanes, coming in at number 13 this year. They're a video game offense last year. Cam Ward putting up massive stats last season. And then they lose 2 games. Probably should have lost at least 2 more, maybe 3. People were complaining how Miami should have been in the playoffs. Yikes. Carson Beck is leaving Athens, Georgia, and going down to Coral Gables. I'm worried about that with the injuries of his bum-throwing shoulder. But, you listen to Hurricane fans talk, he's going to be the second coming of Joe Burrow here, Fresh. What you got from Miami Hurricanes, number 13?
Well, this Hurricane football team, Mario Cristobal, I'm just going to say right now, in Mario Cristobal's time at Oregon and Miami, he had early success at Oregon, and ever since he came down to Miami, it's been a tough watch. Cam Ward and the referees saved them last year. That team, that defense especially, was terrible. They have talent. They recruit really well, whether they're paying players or the kids want to be in them, they want to be part of the U. And the alumni base of former players down there is trying to get young elite kids to come play. The element is fantastic. The fan base is terrible. The stadium's empty every single Saturday. That's why I said when Florida plays Miami, it's going to be a Gator game and down there in Miami Gardens at the Hard Rock. Not the old Orange Bowl, but somehow they're going to get kids to come down there and play. It's can they play at a high level? Because right now they've had back to probably 3 straight top 15 classes, maybe even a couple top 10s in there. Like they're getting talent down there. And the transfer portal, the money, they're not shying away. But now it's time to put it up together. The reason why Cristobal was down there is because he did have some success at Oregon. They wanted that in Miami. And I tell you right now, in the Pac-12 when he was out there at Oregon compared to the ACC, the Pac-12 is harder, and he still won the league. Miami has not even played in an ACC title game since they joined the ACC, much less even won it. They've been an afterthought. That standard, they can't even get that standard. The only year of significance in Miami football was the stupid turnover chain season, and they got stomped in the Orange Bowl by a slow, prodding Wisconsin Badger football team, a blue-collar team. in their own stadium in their bowl game. That is your claim to fame in the past 15 years of football. The 2002, 2001, 2003 Miami Hurricanes, they're not coming through that door anymore. They're not making a U.3. They had a U and the U number 2 ESPN 30 for 30. There hasn't been a third installment because the team's been terrible. That has got to change this year. There's too much talent on this football team. You're taking care of NIL. We've already seen it so far in the recruiting cycle for the class of 26, especially with Jackson Cantwell. Like they're throwing down money. Drew Rosenhaus is a Miami guy. He's an agent. He's going to go out and get players trying to negotiate deals. You've got to find ways to start winning football games on the field before money will no longer be an option at that point. If your team is terrible, the money is just one thing and they'll go somewhere else and they'll get paid eventually. You've got to start winning ball games on the field. Carson Beck coming down there. In 2023, he looked fantastic. Yes, their receiver talent at Georgia was a lot better than it was in 24. There was a lot of drop passes last year. There may have been some turmoil in the locker room. His off the field stuff with a current or former Miami basketball player who the reason why he came down there and that relationship fizzled out pretty quick. There's just a lot of drama, a lot of off the field stuff. Where's his head at? Yes, he had injuries. Is he trying to have a reclamation project, trying to prove everybody wrong? Or if he's like, hey, I got paid, I don't care anymore. I'm making so much money now, it's not even funny. Like, where's his head at? The receiver talent in Miami, it's a lot of raw talent. They lost Restrepo. They lost some other guys to the portal or graduation of the NFL draft. There's not much there as returners. The top 2 returners in receptions for the Hurricanes this year is Mark Fletcher, running back, who had 10, and tight end Elijah Lofton, who had 9. There's a lot of unknowns. Yes, you're going to have C.J. Daniels coming in, the former Liberty LSU product, and some other unknown mid-tier guys. But who's really the dominant player of that offense? They don't have Damian Martinez at running back. It's going to be a running back by committee. Your offensive line is probably your strongest group, but it's not like they put those linemen in the draft. The talent is raw. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of highly recruited players, a lot of potential, but can they put it all together? How fast will Carson Beck be ready to rock and roll? They had Notre Dame coming in week 1. If he can be ready to operate, you have to play a team that played for a national championship at a high level, looking to get back there in the first game without having money reps. Where's his head at? Where's his offensive line at? Cristobal's an offensive line coach. What has he really done? He has one good offensive lineman that got drafted, Sewell, when he was at Oregon. He had recruited a 5-star in Managa here at Miami, and then just got Cantwell. But he's only really put 2 guys in the NFL, and that was Jalen Rivers last year. So where's the development aspect? This is a big challenge for Cristobal and his offensive line coach, who's so heralded. Where are they going to show up and get it done? So there's a lot of questions there. How do you get this talent, especially portal talent, and recruited depth to play at a high level? The stars are one thing. The glitz and glamour signing day and portal whatnot in South Beach and Miami nonsense. It's time to put up or shut up. In not just the ACC, but even just get yourself in an argument to actually make the playoffs and win big games. Because last year, I don't really recall Miami winning a big game. You beat Cal, but you won it by some sketchy stuff. You beat Virginia Tech because of the refs. You lost to Syracuse.
At
Florida team at the beginning of the year wasn't very good. The
Right.
Florida team in November, it's a different story. Week 1 team was not good, and we all knew that was going to happen. Was that your season? Was week 1 beating the Gators, the swamp, the season for the Hurricanes? Like, where was that consistency at?
Louisville,
That game was a shootout the entire
Yeah, it
time. Like,
was.
all right, I'll give you. They went to Louisville, they won, but
you're right. They
where
didn't
was-
have main marquee wins.
yeah, where is it defensively? Reuben Bain Jr., the only real guy they have. DeMardo Blunt, big time recruit. Are the 2 of them going to create pressure? I'm not threatened. There's no true returning presence in the secondary that's going to say, you know what, I got to watch out for that guy. There's a lot of highly recruited players, some portal guys, but where is this? There's a lot of talent. There's expectation. Can they all put it together? If they all put it together and Carson Beck plays like a 2023 version, all right, fantastic. CJ Daniels plays like he was at Liberty. All right, fantastic. But Cristobal, the pressure's on you to deliver now because there's no shortage of NIL money. There's no shortage of recruiting in South Florida. You've got to start winning ball games. They don't leave the state of Florida until November. That's another big, big win for them right there. You don't play a game outside the state of Florida until November 1st. Your first 7 games are in the state, and 9 of the 12 games on the schedule are in the state of Florida. You have got to take that to your advantage. There's no long road trips to the West Coast. You're not having to worry about the trip to Cal anymore. How do you make this happen? Yes, you do have some cold weather games late in the year at Virginia Tech and at Pitt. But if you're playing through the weather and you're dealing with the travel, you take care of business, you're in good shape. The toughest stretch for this football team, I'm going to give them a 5-game stretch and a 4-game stretch. September 20th, you host Florida in Miami, which it'll probably be a road game. You go to Florida State, your first road game of the year, October 4th. At Florida State, I got a feeling they can't be worse than they were last year. And I really hope that guy ate the dog poop, by the way. He should have done that a long time ago. October 17th, they get Louisville. October 25th, they get Stanford. And then November 1st, they go to SMU and play Jennings in the Mustangs. If you can go 4-1 in that stretch, you're in great shape. It's a lock. You're probably playing for an ACC title. 5-0, obviously guaranteed. Or the wheels fall off by the time you come back from Dallas. How do you manage this stretch right now if you're Mario Cristobal? They can find a new coach to come down there. But the story, you're a former Miami Hurricane player. You played for a national championship in the 90s. That's going to wear off real quick. If Kirby had stunk at Georgia, they wouldn't have cared that he was a former Georgia player. You got to be able to look. Luke Fickell was interim coach at Ohio State, former Buckeye. That wore off real quick. Being an alumni of the school doesn't matter if you stink and you don't win. You've got to find a way to start winning big games. They don't want to keep going to Miami to play the Pop-Tart Bowl. You want to start playing for the playoffs. So Mario Cristobal, get the team ready to go. Ceiling, if everything goes well and these guys play at a high level and Carson Beck is healthy, 11-1. Just like the previous year. Like a lot of things click, they can get it done. Floor, 6-6. This thing can fall apart really, really quick. And I actually think the Hurricane team could fall apart faster than the Florida Gator football team because there is so many dysfunction things. And we saw what happened with Carson Beck in that locker room last year when he didn't have 2 superstars catching the ball for him and a lot of elite talent. Guys were on the same page. If he's not healthy and he's not had that relationship, things fall apart quickly. So there's a big stretch here for the Hurricanes. 11-1 potentially, but the bottom could fall out and it could be 6-6. So we'll see what happens in South Beach.
Wow, I'm looking at Miami's schedule and like trying to think, all right, worst case scenario there. And again, I think that Florida State kind of burned us all last year because I don't think any of us expected a 2-win football team out of the Seminoles last year at all. But I'm just trying to see teams that I think that are good enough to beat Miami. I don't know if I see 6 losses here.
I think Virginia Tech can get them. Florida can get them. Florida State can get them. Louisville can get them. SMU can get them. Syracuse. That's 6 right there. Pitt could even get them.
I don't think Florida State can get them. I'm not thinking too highly of them.
We just listed off 7 teams that could potentially beat the Hurricanes right there. So if the bottom falls out,
it's a stretch.
6.
Yeah,
but is it going to happen? You know what, Hurricane fans? You're going to a bowl game. Let's put that. You're going to a bowl game.
Jeez. Yeah, 6-6. Coral Gables might just be hoping for a real hurricane if that happens.
Here's the best thing. Dolphins or Hurricanes. Which one makes the playoffs or do neither make the playoffs? Both, neither, or Dolphins or Hurricanes.
Neither.
What football team in South Florida? You going neither?
I think neither. All right, so before I just get completely sidetracked on looking at this and trying to figure out their schedule, because
I'm being irrational. There's too much talent. I don't think the mental part can they withstand it.
So
are they the you? Are they the you?
Right. I went back and looked. They have 4 seasons where in the last 4 seasons they have had top 15 recruiting classes there, according to 24/7. I look at them, and first off, it's going to start with what Carson Beck are they getting? Is Carson Beck's shoulder ripped to shreds? Has it been repaired? Is it going to be healthy enough to throw the football? Again, at the end of the day, it's going to come back to how well he has recovered from injury. Second thing, I know you said that they were going running back committee. I like Fletcher and Lyles as a 1-2 punch there for them. I think neither one of them is maybe as good as Damian Martinez was, but I think that in the aggregate, they could probably be as good with that, and especially with the veteran line coming back. I like the 2 running backs there as well. I did put in my notes here, the wide receiver room leaves a lot to be desired here. They're going to rely heavily on C.J. Daniels, the transfer from LSU. I think he is going to play. He's a senior. He's older there. Him and Carson Beck may develop a pretty good relationship since both of them are coming in the portal together. End of the day, we could sit here and talk about the offense, and that's what is going to sell tickets. That's what's going to get eyeballs on the product there. But if this Miami Hurricane team wants to win football games, again, I feel like I'm talking about Iowa State again. it comes back to Mario Cristobal and the defense. 8 out of their last 10 games, 350 yards total offense. They gave up over 400 yards of total offense 4 times last year. Man, those guys couldn't catch molasses in the wintertime up in a 1.5 foot of snow. It is that cold.
You were going to drop the Christmas storyline. You were getting really close there.
Oh, pretty close to it. But I'm telling you, man, if this defense does not get better, and again, they have talent. They have talent. They got some speed. They got some good defensive backs. They have the people there. It's just deliver. Like, they have to deliver something here. Again, I got the same toughest stretch as you do there, Fresh, starting with the Florida game. I just didn't go past Stanford, even though I wanted to, because I don't think Stanford's going to pose much of a problem for them. But then SMU, you got to go to Dallas there. That's going to be the Florida game and the SMU game. That's going to be, to me, the 2 make-or-break games. I'll be intrigued to see Louisville this year. Braum is a great coach at Louisville, but you do get them in Miami. But Louisville could pull off the upset. And that's already been announced for a 7 p.m. kickoff there. I'm going to say this, Fresh. I don't see this team beating the Irish at all. I'm going to say my ceiling for them, 11-1. I think that Notre Dame is a good tier better than they are, but they could win every other game on their schedule. They could.
I agree. They could go 0-1 and then 11 straight.
Yeah. That matchup against Florida, I think, is going to be very difficult for them because I think Florida wants blood. But that's going to be a low-scoring game. And if I looked at the early season odds, that's under a field goal game right now. I remember correctly. And again, if I'm wrong on that, you guys can correct me in the comments there. Everything else is a winnable football game. I do not like them going on the road late in the season. I do think that if Virginia Tech plays better than what they're been positioned at and what we think they are, and again, Pitt is always a difficult place to play in November. I'm going to go 7-5. I'm not going to go full on 6-6 there. It is only a 1-game difference, and even 7-5, I feel like this is still an 8-4 team. But I kind of agree with you with saying, like, if the wheels fall off, if Beck's arm doesn't reattach to its shoulder and, be able to throw the football all over the place, if they don't find a number 1 receiver, if Lyles and Fletcher cannot do the same thing Martinez does, wheels are going to fall off. I see at least 4 losses, maybe 5. Again, if things get real crazy, it will be kind of fun to watch Miami go 6-6. But again, I do think this is 11, and the ceiling could be 11-1 for them too.
Yeah, I mean that's right. This collection team, we mentioned at the very beginning, there's a lot of potential and a lot of talent. Can they put all these teams put it together and play at a high level?
Right.
We talked about receiver depth at Iowa State, the quarterback depth at Florida, and quarterback depth at Miami. Those are the most important groups of all these 3 teams we talked about so far.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's go to our number 12 team. They won the Big 12 Conference out of nowhere last year. Everyone thought that they were going to be awful. The Arizona State Sun Devils, winning the Big 12 Conference, should have beat Texas in the playoff game. Should have. There were some very questionable calls late in that football game. Plus, when you have 3rd and 14, and they do an all-out blitz, and he throws it for 4th and 13, and they rush 7 or 8. That's a terrible defensive call. Arizona State.
Questionable calls.
Levin and Tyson are back. The show goes on with them. Here's my fun fact about Arizona State, though, here, Fresh. They were 12-2 last year against the spread. 12-2. They were 7-2 as dogs last year. 5-0 as home dogs. Interesting thing, if you wanted to really make some money, you could have done so with Arizona State last year, taking them against the spread. What you got with Arizona State? Levitt and Tyson are back, man. So they got some talent there.
Well, I'd say start off with LA life after Scatabo. It's going to be interesting running back by committee. You're not going to get the same, but I think they're going to try to mix and match a little bit more and try to get close. First, it starts with Kanye Udo, the transfer running back from Army. He comes in, and you have Tyson Brown and Raleek Brown. The three of them just, how can they mix and match that running game? And some other passing game, third down back, some power back, keeping them all in rotation, putting two on the field at the same time, but getting them involved. Because the ground game obviously fueled Levitt in that passing game, especially from a play action perspective, and it helps the offensive line. You mentioned Tyson. Build off of 2024 and stay healthy. If you can, they're going to be in great shape. Expect tight ends, Mateer and AJ Aya, to be more involved. Obviously, maybe run more of a 12 personnel, help the running backs out a little bit, get them in some of that short yard, mid-range passing game to really help the offense floor and that completion percentage to escalate for Sam Levitt. 4 offensive line starters and 7 overall on the offensive return. So they're good. You already have an offensive genius who came over and became the head coach in the second year. You start getting returning experience in year 3. I want to see how they elevate that, where they can get a little more creative. How can they take plays they had last year and just enhance it? Take the same formation and sort of maybe play off of it and add more. How do you self-scout a little bit offensively and see where you were good and where you can maybe add a little bit more? So that's going to be interesting. Defensively, though, they were the underrated side of the ball last year. Everything was on Levitt and Scatterbo and Tyson. The offense putting up points, and they returned 9 starters on defense. Plus, you obviously hit the portal and you add a couple extra guys. How does that defense carry this team? Are they actually the rock early in the year while they find who's going to be that number 1 go-to in that running game, or who's going to be that number 2 receiver in the passing attack? Let the defense kind of fuel you and keep you going. So that's going to be a unique element because we already know the Big 12 can be really wild. So whose team can actually find ways to get some stops? You don't have to get 10 of them. You maybe just have to get 1 or 2 throughout the ballgame in the Big 12 historically to be able to keep advancing. They're not going to shut anybody out consistently, but getting the stops when you need them against big teams like they had versus BYU in that game down there in Tempe last year late, who's going to show up and make plays for them? I really, really like the youthful makeup of this team. I love the head coach, the way he was at Oregon and running the offense there, but then comes back to where he went to school. He's an Arizona State guy, has that feeling, has that pride. It means more to him to see the Sun Devils win. And for a team that last year had no expectations to finish your DFL to start the year, and they're the reason why there is no preseason poll in the Big 12 going forward. Now, can they match the expectation? The talent is there. We just mentioned it, 7 on offense, 9 on defense. Mentally, are they ready to handle that stress of being held to the expectation of we are supposed to be here? We are supposed to be good. We are supposed to compete for a Big 12 title. Not we're going to sneak up and before everyone knows it, we're there. So how does this team had the pat on the backs all off season? Everybody loved him in the Peach Bowl. Everyone felt bad for him for whatever happened, the way the game ended. Everybody loved Cam Scatabo. Now write your own story. Scatabo's not there to save you because he had some amazing plays against Texas. How do you write your own story offensively, defensively, and take that next step? Prove to the world that number 1 last year wasn't a fluke, and number 2, it wasn't because of Cam Scatabo and you guys were other dudes. Play your own game. Be your own team here in 2025. The schedule builds up for you. I think you have it. The toughest stretch, September 20th at Baylor. How's Dave Aranda have them ready and can they handle the Bears there? Get TCU at Utah and Kyle Wood against last year, and then Texas Tech, which will probably be October 18th. Arizona State, Texas Tech could be a barn burner of a game and maybe even a game day location. Just saying right now. Ceiling, 11-1. This team could really get hot and keep rolling, keep building momentum. The floor, I'm not going to say 6-6. I'm going to say 8-4. There's too much talent on this team returning, too many veterans. So the floor is 8-4. The ceiling is 11-1. Wearing those, especially that Texas Tech game, how are they able to flip the switch and keep playing at a high level? Their schedule last year, it wasn't the hardest in the world. They were able to sort of build momentum as they went. This year, they're going to have a couple more tough tests. How do they maintain the expectation? How do they handle the tougher schedule and keep building wins? Momentum, skill, veteran leadership, they have it all. Can they put it up and go win in back-to-back titles? I'm looking forward to what the Sun Devils have to be. But ceiling 11-1, floor 8-4.
Tyson Brown played well with Scattaboo in a spell role there. He's got to be given first crack at this thing. I know they got the Army transfer kid, and, good for him. But I just think that it's a difference because he's coming out of the triple option. You got to give Brown the opportunity to it. And then also Relief Brown, we'll see though, is a really good running back there. Really, really good. Again, also look at the guy who's opposite of Tyson, whether it's McLean, whether it's Jalen Moss there. You got Jaron Hamilton coming in, transferring in from Alabama. He's a 4-star coming out of high school at Alabama. They rate him as a 3-star transfer. He could be a guy who could really see some touches in the Big 12 there as well. The thing that concerned me the most, when I was looking at Arizona State, you're returning your top 2 tacklers, Alford and Rouser. My problem with this is your safeties were the ones leading your team in tackles. Not your defensive ends, not your linebackers, your safeties. That means that guys were getting into the second level on your defense there. That's got to change. That has to change. You can't have your defensive backfield being the leading tacklers on your team. And if you take a look at last year there, Fresh, you look at your tacklers for it. Defensive back, linebacker, safety. Top 4 tacklers on the team, all with 70-plus tackles. That's a concern for me. That is one of those things where maybe Arizona State played with fire a bunch last year and didn't get burned. And that's kind of why everyone picked them to be last, and they got kind of lucky along the way. You had a really great offense, and again, they have a great head coach who, like you said, was an offensive innovator. The schedule is very easy to start off the season. North Arizona, the Lumberjacks, they got to play them. You go to Mississippi State, as long as you can ignore the Cowbells, you'll be just fine. You get newly Pac-12 team, Texas State Bobcats. That's a heck of a ad by the Pac-12 there. And then again, your season really starts week 4 against the Baylor Bears in Waco, Texas as well. I have their hardest stretch actually that month of October going into November. You going to Rice Eccles, playing the Utes on October 11th there. Texas Tech, October 18th. But then you got Houston and then a trip out to Ames, Iowa to play Iowa State. That's a really tough 4-game stretch. I know Dave Aranda and TCU have some form. And West Virginia's got to come in there after a bye week there later on. But the end of the schedule is easy. If they can get through that middle 4-game stretch, I think that this team can repeat as Big 12 champs. I think that they have an opportunity to play for the Big 12 title game with this schedule. They really got to get past Utah, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. So those 3 games are really going to determine their season. I'm going to say this. I think this team takes a step back this year. I think that they played with fire sometimes and just they didn't get burned. They had fireproof gloves on during that time. Sooner or later, you do those things, you're going to get burned. I'm going to say 9-3 is their ceiling this year. 7-5 is their floor, but that would be a absolutely horrific season. So I'd actually even say I think this team is going to be either 8-4 or 9-3. One of the 2 records. I'm not going to go far off than that.
Yeah, that kind of works. I think this team, you mentioned, hey, everything sort of fell right for them last year. All the bounces went their way. A lot of averages come in sometimes. We have to be aware of that as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing. Like, we regress to the mean always. Always go back to mean.
Fall to your level of training.
Yep. All right. Our number 11 team. It is the Illinois Fighting Illini. Brett Bielema.
Football, folks. Basketball. This is the number 11 team in the country in football.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, Fresh, this is this year's Indiana. Illinois is this year's Indiana. Illinois, I got a feeling, will make the playoff.
All right, so from that perspective, yeah, but we weren't talking about Indiana at this point. That's why that aspect doesn't apply. But being the other Big Ten team to make the playoff, I see where you're coming from.
The third Big Ten team.
Indiana came from 4th. They'll be the 4th Big Ten team. Indiana came from the middle
of nowhere. Arizona State.
So like this team, yeah. In Illinois, though, Brett Bielema has built a powerhouse there.
Yes.
He is a Big Ten coach. Obviously, he played at Iowa, dominated Wisconsin when he was the coach there, had some arguments about money and then left. Thought he was too big for his britches, went to the SEC at Arkansas, got more money and got smoked every year, but he did have to play in the same side of the league as Auburn, Alabama, and LSU. Goes back to Illinois at a program that they were at the dregs. Like, I think Illinois fans will admit that Illinois football was not fun. And he built them from the ground up, from the very bare minimum. And he did it his way. Offensive line, defense, and run the football. And what he has done now in Champaign, this is not just good, they're legit good, folks. Offensive line, run the ball, return 9 stars in offense. Luke Altmaier is the quarterback who used to be at Ole Miss. He is that serves the drink there. Last year was great. Can he take it to the next level this year? The running back situation, though, Lafley and Fagan, they combine for 895 yards and 7 touchdowns. That running back by committee. Can they take it to the next level now with more playing time? Can they get to 15? Can they combine for 2,000? We'll see here as the season progresses. Defensively, Anthony Henry, former Wisconsin corner, played in the league a little bit, is the DC. The entire secondary for Illinois returns. The entire defensive line's been overhauled. And to mention it, he's a bully. They brought in some transfers on the defensive line. 2 of them were starters at Wisconsin last year, and he brought them to Illinois. So Luke Fickell, you're getting put in a locker by the school right below you. Thompson Jr. and Neal both going to be starting there for Illinois, coming right from the Wisconsin defensive line, adding some veteran leadership there, some presence. Their linebackers are solid. The secondary obviously is there. That defense is going to be legit. Their biggest test is going to be when they play Ohio State, but really, this Illinois team is built not just to play at a high level in the Big Ten, but to play at a high level nationally. What they did last year in the bowl game for South Carolina, we had a lot of high hopes for that South Carolina football team. They went toe to toe and they beat them. And they were very brash about it and they were cocky. And you know what? That fuels recruiting and that fuels the fight that this team actually is going to be taken legit, and they have, or it's going to be. There's not many. I think the only glaring hole in this entire football team depth wise would be at wide receiver. Because they had some guys this past year, 2 guys, Zakai Franklin and Brown, that were both drafted. These 2 starters. Who's going to step up in the passing game situation? Because they're going to need a passing game, probably not to beat the Purdue's of the world, but when they play Ohio State or they play in the playoff, you're going to need a passing game, and Luke Altmaier is going to have to release the football. So where do they take that next step? Who's going to jump up in the receiver depth chart, whether from a development standpoint or in the transfer portal, and want to be that number 1, number 2 alpha? If they can get that handled, the running game and the offensive line, the defense will handle itself, and they'll be in a great spot. In 2024, though, you talk about law of averages and coming back to the mean. This is one thing I think we need to pay attention to. They had 6 games decided by 8 points or less in 2024. They went 5-1 in those 6 games. Is there a regression? Do they go 3-3 if those in the 6-game scenario last time, and basically a touchdown spread? So they're really, really good in close ball games. Can they keep that trend going in 2025 and make up? Because they could have easily been 1-5, and this season's an average football team. But 5-1 in tough games, 8 points or less, shows the team had the grit and the willpower to be there for the full 60 minutes. Brett Bielema's gonna have the boys ready to go. They're gonna be ready to fight. Their toughest 4-game stretch. This is not gonna be an easy schedule, but September 20th, they go to Hoosierland, take on Kurt Signetti. September 27th, taking on USC. October 4th, going to Purdue. And October 11th, they're getting the Buckeyes. If you go 2-2 in that stretch, I can see that that's decent. If you go 1-3, you're in trouble. If you're 3-1 or 4-0, you're obviously in a great spot. The ceiling for this football team is 11-1. The Ohio State game, I still very, very tough until I actually see it happen. If them beating Ohio State is going to be a real challenge. 9-3 is the floor for this football team. It's a tougher schedule, but they have a chance to really put together a year. I think 9-3 gets them in the playoff at the 10-12 seed somewhere in there. This team is a playoff team. If they can play within their heads and win those 1-score games again this year, the defense and the offensive line, the defense as a whole and the offensive line dictate this dominance. If they get in big deficits, because Luke Altmaier carried this team back. That's the other part. The passing game, Luke Altmaier, if they're down by double digits late in the ball game, can you lead them to a victory? But overall, this team is very talented. Brett Bielema has the powerhouse there in Champaign. Ceiling 11-1, 9-3 is the floor. And I'm going to say it right now, just like you, Illinois is a playoff team.
Yeah. You impressed me last year when you beat a very good South Carolina team. I think very highly of
All right, thanks for
Preseason
the
here,
heart.
Fresh. Not just last year, every season. When you beat a South Carolina team like they did, especially in the fashion that you just kind of bullied them all game long, that really set the tone going into this season. There's a few things. They're returning one of the better defensive backfields in college football this upcoming year. I mean, they're all back. They allowed only 300 yards once last season. All right. You take a look at your strong safety, Matthew Bailey. This kid plays like a linebacker. He is going to run in and he is going to lay the lumber to anyone who wants to come into the middle of the field. I think this defense could be one of the all elite defenses. And I think that really the test is going to come down to me, I'm going to say 3 games that are going to be my measuring stick game. Going on the road, Indiana, week 4, I need to see Illinois go on the road and be able to beat a really good Hoosiers team. On top of that, Ohio State on the October 11th game. And then for me, going out to Washington. I have a feeling people are sleeping on Jeb Fish and the Huskies out there. I think that could be a very difficult game. Those 3 games are going to tell me what to think about this Illinois football team. And it's kind of right around the area where I say is their toughest stretch. I know you talked about the wide receivers a little bit here, Fresh. They got 2 guys coming back, and I'm looking at developmental for them is Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon. Those 2 guys, how are they going to develop? And Dixon's a sophomore, Beatty is a senior there. But I think they got 2 huge transfers, and both of these guys could make monster impacts for this football team. They got Christian Aberney out of Ball State, a tight end, one of the better tight ends over there in the MAC. He could be a player in this. He currently, it looks like, is running on the second team in spring practice. And then other guy, Hudson Clement, wide receiver from West Virginia last year, was an absolute burner. Kid's got some serious speed. 51 catches, 700 plus yards, 5 touchdowns last year in Morgantown. He could be a huge, huge get for Altmaier and this offense so they can kind of lean on some of these kids as well. The question to me is, does Altmaier develop chemistry and how fast does it happen? Because you're going to have time to work this out. Western Illinois and the Leathernecks there, don't worry about that too much. Duke, Western Michigan, your season starts week 4 against the Indiana Hoosiers there as well. Fresh, I'm going with you, 11-1. Until they beat a team like Ohio State, you really have to prove it to me. And again, Ohio State does struggle in Champaign against good Illinois team. Go back to Juice Williams days back there. But again, talent on Illinois is still a little bit off than the talent at Ohio State. But again, I'm with you. 11-1 with this schedule. Again, worst case scenario in my mind, 9-3. This to me screams playoff team.
All this we've talked about, it dawned on me. Has Illinois and Indiana ever met in football, both ranked in the top 25?
I doubt it.
Or at least in the last 100 years, maybe like 1908 or whatever, but between 1925 and 2025, has India and Illinois at the same time met, both ranked in the AP top 25? That would be something to see.
My initial thought would be no.
Well, I'm sure we'll find, they'll probably pop once we get to that week of the season, but that's something I want to look at. And if anyone else knows that information or wants to hop in the chat on our YouTube channel, please drop the knowledge. Let us know, confirm if we're right or wrong, or hey, if it has happened before, we want to find the box score and everything about that game.
Yeah, seriously. I want to take a look at it here. I'm taking a look real quick and seeing like college football, if there's anything online that we can find that they ever matched up with each other as ranked teams.
off the top of my head, it's not one of those matchups that you would say. I remember both those teams being powerhouses or being good at the same time. You can say that. Purdue they had some teams there. Ohio State was probably ranked. Ohio State and Purdue probably ranked better ranked teams. You can say that about Wisconsin. You can say about Michigan State. But Indiana and Illinois, both being nationally ranked teams at the same time, is that matchup in September will be historic just for that reason. If they both can be undefeated when they walk into that ball game.
If you take a look at it here, Fresh, they have met over 70 times.
70 times?
73 times. Illinois is 46, 25, and 2 against the Indiana Hoosiers there.
Well, we'll see if they can add that extra W in September.
Yeah. I don't think either one of these teams have ever met as top 25 teams.
All right, so folks, September 20th, Bloomington,
crazy.
Indiana, Brett Bielema, Kurt Signetti. It might be a historic affair for those two fan bases, those two programs.
Yeah.
Another thing you kind of look at,
now.
It shows how NIL has made a big difference. Now, recruiting and developing is one thing, but going out and finding the right players, what they did at Indiana, where they've done it at Illinois. We saw Arizona State. The portal, if you hit with the right players in the portal, you don't overspend, go out and spend all on one player, and you get the camaraderie to gel quickly, along with players who want to be on campus for 4 or 5 years. You need a good blend of that, because then you have people who are built there for the standard, who've been developed in the program. You bring in some of the transfer players, and you have a plan you stick to. And also, I think, is giving some coaches some time. Illinois invested in Bielema's like, hey, we're going to give you some time. He paid back dividends by winning now. Signetti obviously built a lot of rapport by last year's run in Indiana, but obviously his time at James Madison, you've had that allowed to be successful. You're not 2 years and you're fired. Giving some guys chances to build a program in the right mind and the right set it has the chance to be more rewarding. We can't be pulling the fast ejection seat on some of these teams, because the NIL is just going to be, you're recruiting your same team year in and year over. So be patient with your coaches, try to get some success. Expectations are going to be high for everybody, but be reasonable sometimes. Give maybe that 3 to 4 year window, not that 1 or 2, and you're done. Now, with that said, yes, Billy Napier at Florida, you're on the hot seat if you don't pull it out this year and have a successful season.
All right, we do have an answer here. According to the internet, Illinois and Indiana have never faced as AP top 25 ranked teams, although there is some dispute apparently in 1968. So if you are it doesn't say what the dispute is about this, but if you know what is special about the 1968 matchup between Illinois and Indiana, please leave it in the comment section. Educate Fresh and myself. It's going to be a great football season. I'm intrigued here. Before we sign off on this show here, Fresh, there's 12 teams in the playoffs. We're at our top 10. Let's say it goes chalk. 1 through our top 10, all 10 teams make the playoffs here. Out of these 5 teams that we've talked about, you got to put 2 in the playoff. Which 2 are you putting in? Or saying these 2 teams would be the betting favorites for you?
Well, that's tough, because that gives away who our top 10 is. I would put Illinois in the playoff.
Okay.
And I would put Arizona State in the playoff. I would put Iowa State in the playoff.
Yeah, those were my 2.
You mean Iowa State and Illinois? I couldn't say Florida. That couldn't come out of my mouth.
I think Florida's schedule.
Florida would have a better chance than Miami. Just got to take the schedule. People give them more leeway.
Right.
Miami's schedule the way it is, and after last year, there's not much love there. Arizona State and Iowa State, one of the two. One's going to cancel the other one out.
Yeah. All right, folks, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. Make sure you check out SpinnableSports.com, because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of SpinnableSports.com. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Hit that notification bell. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe. Get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. It's that time of year. We're finally to our top 10 year fresh. It's exciting times. I'm excited to dive into our top 10 because all 10 of these teams, I would say, could have a shot at a national title. Could.
Yeah, the top 10 is very, very talented. They're right then and there. So make sure you guys lock in, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spinnable Sports YouTube. Spread the word, spread the love, hit the chat, involve with us, hit spinnablesports.com. Hit us up on Twitter, X, Twix, whatever you want to call it, at IR Confidence Pod for the Irrational Confidence Podcast, at Spinnable Sports. You can also follow the two of us, and you can find our baseball podcast at Power Alley Pod, and also anywhere on the YouTube channel as well. So engage with us, hit us up, enjoy our content. Let us know what you want to hear more of. Engage with us anyway, whether good, bad, or indifferent. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye, y'all.